Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I see that a couple of people were waiting already. Hopefully they'll come back. So I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join, and then I'll get started with the video. So just bear with me 1 second as I wait for people to tune in. Sorry that I was running a little bit late, but hopefully people will catch it. So I'm not going to hold it up. I just want to continue. So I'm going to show you all my screen. I want to show you this article that I read today that really inspired me to do this particular video. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Hopefully the audio is fine. If there are any problems, please let me know. So earlier today, I was on Facebook and I came across this article right here. And what I want to do is read a couple of excerpts from this article. And basically, this article is about a Black woman activist who is raising question about her Blackness because she's married to a white man. So I'm going to go through this article, read a couple of points from the article, and then start a discussion. And I'm really interested in hearing from you. So she talks about how her boyfriend is white. And she goes on to say, not just white, he's blonde haired, blue eyed. And, she talked about, how he listens to Dave Matthews Band. And, because of this relationship, she's taken on alternative music listening, rock climbing. And, this guy is a surfer as well. It says that, in this article, she says that she fell in love with him like 12 years ago at an Arizona drug and alcohol treatment center. And, in this article, she talks about how she basically exposed him to Black culture, exposed him to Black films like Superfly and Boomerang. And then he exposed her to white culture, things that he does, in his culture. Like fly fishing and all this other stuff. And then she also talked about how this relationship made her realize that she eventually was letting go of her Black relationship ideal that she says that she has been harboring since she was a little girl when her father, back when she was like 4 years old. And she actually asked her father to marry her, not really, obviously not really realizing what she was doing at 4 years old. And then, she talks about what's going on right now, how you have these protests against police brutality. You had a Black Lives Matter movement. You actually have corporations embracing Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff. And so she's talking about this. She's talking about how Black people are gathering to support one another, to protest together, to mourn together. In all these police brutality cases, they're attending rallies and vigils and things of that nature. And she talks about how never in American history have we felt more empowered or valued. And then she says, but lately, I've had fits of self-doubt whenever I sit down at my computer. Can I continue to write impactfully about the Black experience when my boyfriend is white? Can I properly protest the treatment of Black Americans with him at my side? Does my white boyfriend diminish my Blackness? So those are questions that she raises in this article. And then, she goes on to talk about like how, how she's used to going to all these Black spaces before she hooked up with this white guy. and she felt every inch of her body as a black woman. You know, and now when she walks into those same spaces with her white boyfriend, she feels differently. She says that she feels like there's a bright spotlight on his whiteness. She talks about how there are times without provocation, she's found herself wanting to defend her relationship. And then she actually goes into this article to talk about how back in the 90s, you know, her friends would have referred to her as militant. Um, and then she also says, because back then she was known to throw low key shade at her friends who dated white men. And then, you know, she would say things like, do you really want to be responsible for further dilution of our race? And she claims that back then she just knew that her future, you know, knew that her future husband would be black, and you know she would be a poster child for black love, you know, and how she supported the idea of black people together, black families, black children. She talks about how she loves the, you know, different complexions of black people and hair textures and culture and all that kind of stuff. And then she talks about how she dated black man after black man, yearning for romance, like in Justice and Lucky. You know, in that film, Poetic Justice. You know, she wanted to have that kind of romance, like in that film, and also like the romance that was in the film Love Jones. And I'm just going to take down another note that reminds me of another point that I wanted to make. Okay. So yeah, so that's one of the things that she was saying. You know, she talks about how she went on double black dates and, you know, went to black concerts and all that kind of stuff. Um, and but she said that the reality was that none of these relationships worked out for her. Um, and she talks about how she broke up with these guys. Um, and each time it was like a morning. And then she talks about how when she was 27, she met a white man and they fell in love and got married, and they had two biracial children. And one thing that I found interesting about this point is like how she described this, you know, this love that she had for this white guy, you know, the first white guy that she married. Um, I'm trying to find this quote. There's a quote in here where she describes it perfectly. Um, hold on one second. Yeah, I think it may come up a little bit later in this article. But anyway, like, you know, she talks about marrying this white guy and stuff like that. And, you know, she was just living her life or whatever. And she got this message from a black guy. And he basically said, I see you only like white guys. Um, hold on one second. So she got the, you know, and she ended up divorcing that white guy. So, and then getting in a relationship with this new white guy. So she got this message that basically said, you know, from a black man, basically saying, I see you only like white guys, huh? And because of this, she got really upset. And she was like, how dare he? And her first instinct was to clap back at the guy right away when he sent this message. But she decided to ignore it instead of like responding back to him. You know, basically, she was saying like she didn't owe him any explanations or anything. And, you know, she talks about how this made her think about different things and stuff like that. Um, Made her just basically question her situation. You know, the fact that she's with this white guy, but yet she claims to be so concerned about black people and claims to have all this black pride and everything, but yet still she's with this white guy. And she said, intellectually, I know that the being with a white man doesn't change a thing about who I am or what I stand for. Yet this is somehow the well gets poisoned. And there was one point in here where she was really describing like how much she fell in love with this guy. Um, really going into detail about how she fell in love with this first husband. I'm gonna try to see if I can find that section. Um, just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, because it's a very descriptive way that she described it. But anyway, she was just saying how she fell deeply in love with this white guy and stuff like that. And the article goes on to say, a few more things that I want to point out. Uh, so she said that she eventually responded to the black guy that was asking her if she only likes white guys. And she said, well, yes, you're right. I only like white boys. And she acknowledges that she didn't really mean that. She's basically saying she didn't mean that. And she was just being, just being emotional and stuff like that. And she acknowledges that that response was immature on her part. And then she concludes this by saying that I'm a black woman in love with a white man, but regardless of what folks may see, that is not the totality of our story. I have never been prouder to be black, and I have never been more prouder to be with him. I can choose my man without abandoning my blackness. Um, so that was what she had to say about that. And I'm going to, provide my brief commentary. It has bothered me that I can't find this little quote from this lady. Oh, here it is. She says, so when I met a white man at 27, you could have knocked me over with a feather, especially when he and I fell in love and got married. So she's really describing how much love she had for this white guy. And one thing that I want to point out is that if this is her, I think this is her right here. Yeah, the article says that this is the woman that wrote the article, and that's her husband. This is already a very light-skinned woman. And I'm sure her biracial children within her marriage, before she dated this white guy, probably barely look even black. They're probably racially ambiguous and they could probably pass for white, given the fact that she's already very light. And I'm going to highlight that point a little bit later in this live stream. There are a couple of points that I want to make about that. So this whole situation just made me think about several things. There's several points that I would like to highlight, dealing with this particular article. One point that I want to address is this idea about participating in rallies and stuff like that. The truth of the matter is, anybody can participate in a rally against police brutality. People of different races can participate in different rallies around social justice issues or issues around race and racism. So anybody can do that, regardless of their race, regardless of what kind of relationships they're in or anything like that. That's a separate issue from the question of Black pride. That's a separate issue from the issue of Black love and stuff like that. So anybody can participate in these demonstrations, and they can write about these things and talk about these things, but that's a separate question from the question of identity. And so just like, I mean, I view people like her as allies, people that are still concerned about police brutality and all that kind of stuff, just like I would view a white person that's speaking out about police brutality or marching in any demonstration. So I'm not one to say, well, because you have a certain type of relationship, then you can't participate in demonstrations, or you can't be concerned, advocate, for social justice or for end to police brutality, because anybody can do that. We know that throughout history, there have been white people, for instance, who have been a part of our struggle for human rights and human dignity and civil rights, from the days of the abolitionists to the days of the civil rights movement. And even today, when you see these demonstrations around George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many other victims of police brutality. So that's one thing. But this question of having Black pride, this woman went out of her way to explain how much Black pride that she has and stuff like that, how much she loves Black culture and Black, Blackness, period, Black hair and Black skin complexions, and, our culture and values and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed like she was desperate to prove that she had all of this Black pride, by constantly reiterating it and by actually going out of her way to write a public article like this, to voice this out for the whole world to hear. Like, she had to let everybody know that she had pride in herself. And to me, that's a sign of somebody overcompensating for something that they don't actually have. Like, if you have pride, you don't have to display that everywhere and just go, constantly tell people, oh, I have so much pride. I care so much about something. If you have pride, that becomes manifest by the things that you do and by how you live. And the fact of the matter is, the decisions that we make speak louder than the words that come out of our mouths. The decisions that we make speak louder than any essay that somebody can write. And there is no more intimate of a decision than the decision to marry somebody and the decision to date somebody. There's nothing more intimate than that. You can't lecture me about how you have so much pride in Black people when you're dating and marrying white. I don't buy it. I don't believe you. In the words of Jay-Z, I don't believe you. You need more people. The mere fact that she, dated people in the past or is involved in movements right now, that doesn't mean that you have pride in your people. That alone doesn't mean that you have pride. A lot of people that are advocating for social justice and, civil rights and stuff like that, a lot of times, many of those people, as I've said in prior videos, they are seeking white acceptance, white approval. Some of them are trying to be embraced. They're trying to integrate and to assimilate into whiteness. So even though they are fighting for social justice, really they are fighting so that they can be one with the white man and white society. They're not fighting solely for civil rights and all that kind of stuff. And they're not fighting for independence. They're not fighting for self-determination. They're fighting for acceptance. They're fighting to be appreciated and acknowledged by the white man. And, so I'm not deceived by the mere fact that somebody is involved in a civil rights movement, because your decisions that you make, like as to who you're going to marry and stuff like that, that speaks loud. That speaks loud and clear about what you value, what you're attracted to. And you can't tell me that all of those Black men that this woman dated in all her life were, bad people, or they all were flawed. They all had issues. You can't tell me that. And I think that there's some need for self-examination in this whole situation. Like, what did she do wrong to cause all these relationships to fail. I mean, and then, one thing that stands out to me, like if you have so much pride and all that kind of stuff, why is it that when you fell in love and everything, it was with a white man? And she highlights the white man. She highlights that relationship with that white man that she married, describing how she fell in love. She didn't describe her love with these black guys in that same kind of vein. She didn't describe any love with them in that kind, to that extent, like she described her love to this white man. And then after that relationship failed, instead of trying to get back with with black men and all that kind of stuff, she moved on to another white man. And that tells you a lot. You can write as many essays as you want, but your actual life is speaking louder than any essay that you could ever write. Your choice to marry a white man, and then, after that relationship was done, you decide to get in a relationship with another white man. That just shows what you really believe about your people. Like if you really had all this pride, if you really were about black love and everything like that, it's like, why would you end up with a white man? Why would you end up marrying a white man, divorcing that white man, and getting with another white man? And, she talked about how she feels in certain spaces and all that kind of stuff. Like when she's around these other people, like when she goes to black events and all that kind of stuff, she feels differently now that she's with this white guy. She has this white man with her. For instance, she's going to one of these rallies and she's like, Black Power, Black Lives Matter, and she got this white guy next to her. And, and unfortunately, that's very common. I mean, it's like a blatant example of hypocrisy, and she knows it. That's why she's bothered by it. That's why when that brother sent her that message, that's why it bothered her, because here's somebody that was quote unquote militant in their 20s, according to her. But it's somebody that was criticizing people that date and marry white and all that kind of stuff. But yet and still, here she is finding herself in the very situation that she criticized. And another thing is this, she talked about, how back then when she was in her early 20s, how she criticized black women who dated and married white and all that kind of stuff. And she raised concerns about the dilution of the race. And here she is finding herself in that very same position where she is actually diluting her bloodline. I mean, she's already a very light-skinned black woman. And here she is married, she married a white guy, had 2 biracial children with this white guy. And again, those children are going to probably look white, basically. So another point that I want to raise is this, and it's about this propaganda that's put out here. A lot of this propaganda is designed to encourage black women to abandon black men and black love. You had this article that's basically telling black women, hey, you don't have to be with a black man to be down with your people. Just giving black women an excuse to get out here and get some white man. Because she's talking about all these relationships failed and stuff like that with these black guys. But, she is with a white man. And then the funny thing about it is, like, she's complaining about these relationships failing with these black men, but her relationship with that white man that she married failed as well. But somehow she didn't write off all white men because of that. She went back into getting into another relationship with a white guy. And it just shows you just how hypocritical this woman is, like with her actions. And, you've seen this before. Like I did a video a couple of years ago about this black girl, young woman rather, who got into this relationship with this racist Trump supporter. He was saying all these racist things and it was captured on video and everything. But what did she do? Like after she ended that relationship with that white guy, she got into a relationship with another white guy. Um, so yeah, it's something. It's like they are willing to get a white man all kinds of chances. Willing to try again and again when it comes to the white man. But then all of a sudden, like when it comes to the black man, because of past relationship issues, they want to just basically write off black men. And that's basically what happened here. She's not saying it as blunt as that, but that's what it is. And, my whole point is this propaganda that they put out here, basically designed to encourage black women to abandon a black man. And this particular article is really bad because it makes them feel at ease by telling them, yeah, you can be down with your people and date a white man. And then, not too long ago, I did another video about a black woman who said that she's not pro-black anymore. She's pro-black woman. And, all of these articles are just designed, it just seems like their purpose is to undermine the foundation of the black community. And that foundation is black love and the black family. When you can undermine that foundation, the whole thing just falls apart. And it's just a shame that this black woman who was quote unquote militant will find herself in this situation where, she's with this white guy. And yes, I mean, people are not going to take you seriously if you're talking all this blackety black stuff and, Black Lives Matter and Black Pride and all this and that, and how you're pro-black, but yet you got a white man by your side. Nobody can really take you seriously because your relationship decision is speaking louder than anything that's coming out of your mouth or anything that you're writing in your essays. And that reminds me of a situation here on YouTube where you had this black YouTuber, this guy who's real popular on here, like at least according to subscribers and all that kind of stuff. This guy made all these misrepresentations, telling people that he was married to some black woman, a black Latino or Afro Latino. Turns out he was married to a white Latino or, very light, obviously non-black Latino. But yet this is the same guy that was doing all these videos talking about, criticizing people in interracial relationships, doing interviews with Crystalline Karasin, basically critical of her, presenting this pro-black image, like as if he's some kind of super militant black man, going on these trips to Africa and all this stuff. And turns out he's with this white woman, this white Latino woman. And it's just like, I can't take these kinds of people seriously, man. I just simply can't. I don't believe you when you talk about how you have all this pride, but yet and still you're running around married to a white man. And it's like, how can you have fierce criticism of white supremacy while you're laying up in bed with white supremacy? So I just had to share my thoughts about this. I saw this article and I just had to bring it to you. I'm going to see what you all have to say in the chat, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. Yeah, so Leo said it's a question of loyalty. I mean, in fact, it is a question of loyalty. It's about whether or not you're down for your people, man. It seems like if you are truly down for your people, you would be with your people. If you love your people, then you would love a black man or a black woman. That's what you would do if you're truly down with your people. It's just like a shame. It's like nobody can take you seriously if you talk black and you sleep white. Nobody can really take you seriously. And it kind of reminds me of this poem from The Last Poets where they talk about people being black power advocates in the day and white thigh supporters at night. and you got a lot of this fake stuff on here. You got people. There's got some people on here had a red, black, and green flag as their symbol and everything. Turns out they're married to a white woman. You know, and it's not like, and I want to be perfectly clear. What I'm talking about is not any kind of hatred towards white people or anything like that. So don't come over here suggesting that that's what I'm about. It's not about hatred of any race of people. It's about having pride in your own, love for your own. When you love your people, you naturally gravitate towards your people. And there's nothing wrong with black people having black pride. There's nothing wrong with any nation being proud of itself and preferring its own. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's see. So I see that somebody's mentioning something about watching Joe Biden, and that slogan that what's his name Trump has for Joe Biden. It's like he comes up with these slogans that are that are sticky, and catchy and stuff. Like, so he's calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe, but that's a whole nother topic. But that's catchy. Like, people are saying that, like he called one of the Bush brothers, low energy and all that kind of stuff. He always comes up with clever ways to degrade people. But I digress. I'm going to get back on topic. So let's see what else people are saying. Yeah, so nothing, like Elaine Lloyd said, what's wrong with any of that stuff? Nothing's wrong with those activities that she was talking about being into or trying out. Nothing's wrong with that. I mean, and those many of those things she's talking about aren't necessarily white things or whatever. Uh, Really, that's beside the point. That's really not, the point that I was raising. Um, so let's see. Yeah, and that's an interesting point, Water Sniper. The fact that she would say that they met at a drug and alcohol treatment center. So that makes me wonder, is like, I guess she had to been on drugs, or probably was in the same area, or she may have worked as one of the workers there. I'm not sure, but it sounds like she met. I mean, either way you look at it, he had some kind of problem with drugs or alcohol, um, and that's where she met him. And she's talking, meeting somebody at a treatment facility, but yet you're going to say you can't find a good black man for a long, stable relationship. Um, that's troubling. It's like, and it just reminds me of the talk that people say, when they talk about like people picking bottom shelf brads. And I'm not, you know, if somebody's in a treatment, I don't know what he does for a living. He may be, I'm probably sure he's successful and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, why would you go to like meet somebody at a drug and alcohol treatment center? That doesn't seem like an ideal place to meet somebody. So let's see. Yeah, so Ashley mentioned that we need a name for black men that date outside, date outside of their race much more than black women. So let's see. So Covina Man said she's probably anti-black and just using pro-black politics as a front. Yeah, it's just funny, man. I just can't take you seriously if you like black power, but then it's white power when you're in the bedroom. I just can't. I just find that comical. So Leo said, "Is it possible to love yourself and your people's oppressors?" Yeah, it's like how can you love your people while you love the white man at the same time? Shout out to brother Bakari. Shout out to Sean. Shout out to Dave Bowman. Yeah, so Water Sniper said a lot of them are using pro-black talk for their lame excuses. And one of my concerns is like somebody reading this article may be like, "Yeah, I could be down with my people and be with this white man. So what's the big deal?" And this may just encourage more young women to get into these situations. Um, And that's another thing that I wanted to address. Elaine's comment reminded me of that. And that's this unrealistic expectation of relationships. Like people, like her ideals are based on movies that she saw. Like that's what she was citing. She was citing, movies like Poetic Justice and Love Jones and all that kind of stuff. A relationship shouldn't be based on some what you see in some movie and stuff like that. And it's like when you try to measure real life up against, some fantasy created for Hollywood, then you're going to always end up in situations where you're not satisfied with the people you're dating and all that kind of stuff. She's probably like, "Oh, this is not like Love Jones, so it must not be real love," and stuff like that. You know, a lot of it just seems like a lot of women have very unrealistic expectations. And when people can't meet those unrealistic expectations, they end up ending a relationship. Now, I don't know the circumstances of those relationships. I don't know what happened with those brothers she dated or whatever. I have no idea who was at fault and all that kind of stuff. But it's like the idea that none of these black guys were good enough for you, like none of them were worked out. Um, and it's like you willing to give the white man second chances, but you essentially wrote off black men, even though she's not saying it like bluntly like that, but that's what she has in effect done. So let's see. Yeah, so somebody asked who is the person that which person are you talking about? Because I don't know if you're talking about the person that I referenced on YouTube or you're talking about the person this article is about. Now, the person that this article is about, her name is Laura Robbins, and she's some kind of writer or an activist and stuff. And her boyfriend's name is Scott Slaughter. I'm not going to mention these YouTubers' names and stuff like that. I don't want their names in my stuff. And many people that are familiar with Black YouTube know exactly who I'm talking about. In fact, today I was listening to an old video that one of my favorite YouTubers did on that subject, and that's part of what it was like made me think about this particular article as well. It's like I saw that video come up again in my recommends um, at the same time when I was reading this article. So I felt the need to mention that situation. And to me, it's just funny that despite that kind of situation where you got popular personalities talking black and dating white, people are okay with that. They're like fine, and they just kept it pushing. They still watch this guy. He still has all these subs and stuff like that. I just don't get it. Like, here's somebody that lied to the people, told them one thing, and then when he was caught lying, he came up with all these cockamamie excuses. Um, yeah, so it's just hard to take these people seriously, man, when you see this blatant hypocrisy. So let's see what other people are saying. Yeah, so the article is on the Huffington Post. Uh, yeah, and it's going to be in the description box to this video. I have it in the description box, and I could actually just share the link with you all right now. So if you want to click it and check it out, you can. So I'll do that after I go through your last bit of comments. Shout out to Notice Me. Shout out to you. So Elaine Lloyd said, let's be real, she could have had any black man. She's light enough for black men to lower all standards. She should have found 50. That's funny. I mean, because the sad thing is, like, there is colorism in our community, and we know that a lot of black men view lighter skinned women as more attractive and stuff. Unfortunately, you hear it in the music, you see it in all these videos, like all these like, for instance, like a lot of these black dating coaches and stuff like that, they'll use these light skinned shapely women as their thumbnails to attract people's attention to their videos and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's a real thing. And a lot of these successful black men, the first thing they get as a trophy of their success is either a white woman or a very light black woman. Yeah, so Water Sniper said, let's not get it twisted. Every black person that happens to mention black issues is not pro black. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And like some of these people, some of their rhetoric is pro black, but then on the other hand, a lot of their rhetoric is anti black, anti black male in particular. Like you got this one YouTuber I haven't watched in a long time who constantly refers to black men as um, beta male, dusty beta males, and all that kind of stuff. Always talks about how black men aren't doing this and black men aren't doing that, while she places the white man on a pedestal, even though she's talking all this white supremacy, this, white supremacy, that. It's like some of these people, I think they literally believe that the white man is supreme while they speak out and talk all this anti-white supremacy rhetoric. Um, they constantly praise the white man, um, whether that's their intention or not. Yeah, it's just a shame. It's like I mean, in this article, she talks about like how she's trying to expose this guy to black culture and teach him about black things and stuff like that. It really goes into details. Like, why would you be in a relationship with somebody when you have to educate them about your experience as a person? Like, wouldn't it just be easier to be in a relationship with somebody that's of your culture and of your history and they understand your experience than to be in some relationship where you got to explain black customs and black culture and, black music and black movies and all that kind of stuff? When if you're in just a relationship with your own, you don't have to bother through that, bother with any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that, like, that many black women unfortunately place this white man on a pedestal, just like many black men place white women on a pedestal and stuff, and give them all these chances to screw things up. And then, they're not writing off white men because of what one white man does, or white women and stuff like that. Like, you'll see some of these guys here on YouTube, because of some bad experiences that they have with black women. They make all these conclusory generalizations about black women, and they write off black women. Um, but when it comes to a white woman, if they have something goes south with a relationship with a white woman, they don't write off all white women. They view that as a problem with that particular individual white woman, and they continue to date white women. It's like you got some people that's so pathetic that their whole channel's centered around drooling over white women and other non-black women. But this is the state of affairs, unfortunately, in our community. It's like, it's just sad. It's sad. It's even more of a downer when you have somebody that's professing to be pro-black doing this. I could understand somebody that's, didn't profess to be pro-black. Somebody that, was just a regular person, and they're not like some activist, and they're not on here pretending to be about black pride and black love and all that kind of stuff. For them, like, I can see them getting in that kind of situation. I would have less criticism for that kind of person. But when you're putting on a show and you're pretending to be all about the people, and you're pretending to have all this pride and love for your people, but yet you're with a white man or a white woman, that just undermines everything that you talk about, everything that you profess to be about. So let's see some. Yeah, and it is propaganda that's directed at men and women. Let me just put this in the chat. Yeah, so somebody said she reminds them of Kimberly Klasick, and yeah, I mean, I can see somebody drawing that analogy, because that's another black woman married to a white man and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's like they come up with all these excuses to justify what they're doing. Um, let's see. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, so I got to highlight this comment. So Ashley Beckford said, I have a relative who doesn't get it after over 20 years of marriage and an impending divorce. One black man did her wrong, but somehow white men are still worth dating, despite the fact that her son is a white supremacist. Wow. Yeah, it's just interesting. I wonder how those relationships survive too. I wonder what the conversations are like. I mean, here you are, this activist, you're out here talking about white people doing this and white people doing that. Like, you're criticizing, the people that your loved one is from. And I'm just wondering, like, what kind of impact that would have on a relationship. Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing your content too, Ashley. You know, you mentioned book reviews and politics, so I'm really interested in checking out your stuff. So Big Game Orenthal said this is how 99% of these pro-black broads are. I mean, I don't approve of that language, but I hear what you're saying, man, because it's like you hear all these people talking all this black power stuff, and the next thing you know, they with some white guy. Like I go to the, like, you know, like I was telling somebody the other day, like, you know, there's this market here in Baltimore. It's a real nice market downtown where they have all these fresh vegetables and fruit, and you know, vendors selling different types of food and arts and crafts and all that kind of stuff. It's really nice. But when I go there, like a lot of times I see like these black women, you know, professional black women that have African garb on and natural hair and all that kind of stuff. And they're walking around with a white man holding their hand. And it's just like something about that picture doesn't add up. And it's the same thing with black men. Like I'll see a black guy with some red, black, and green on, you know, have long locks and all that kind of stuff, but be walking around with a white woman. It's just funny to me. So I'm just looking at the comments, so just bear with me a second. So it's funny reading your comments about that YouTuber that I mentioned. I'm not going to put his name out there because y'all, I mean, most people already know, and you know, y'all, people in the comments mentioned the person's name, but I just don't want to put their name in my stuff. Shout out to Big Game. Thanks for your donation. Bottom shelf Brad don't need no swag. That's funny, man. It's like, it's just funny how things turn out, man. You know, it's just like, wow, man. Yeah. Yeah, so I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I may do one more video tonight. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you all for your time. I truly appreciate it. I encourage you all to please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you know when I post new content on here. And I encourage everybody that's watching right now to hit that like button. You know, that helps spread the word about my channel. Again, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I need your help. Please spread the word about this channel. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great evening.